That winter, Detroit forgot how to breathe. The blizzard didn't drift, it attacked. Streetlights vanished, sirens died. The city went quiet like it was holding its breath for bad news. Ruth Ellis was 68 and stubborn. Widow, former hardware clerk. Her house leaned. Her roof clicked when it settled. She still shoveled her own steps. At 8:11 p.m., 9 silhouettes filled her porch. Leather jackets, frosted beards, eyes squinting through needles of ice. A fist tapped the glass. Not loud, not timid either. "Ma'am," a deep voice said, "we're freezing out here." Ruth's arthritis ached above the bolt. She knew the stories, clubs, fights, trouble. But she also knew the Bible by memory. "Knock, and it shall be opened unto you." She opened the door. Wind roared through her hallway. The men moved in order, not chaos. No shouting. Tools in pockets. Headlamps. Two peeled off to her basement when they heard the furnace cough. "Permission, ma'am?" "Go," Ruth said, trying not to shake. They called themselves the Iron Vow Riders. Fictional or not, tonight they were all too real. Their leader introduced himself as Caleb Knox, salt and pepper beard, scar near the ear, eyes like steel that had seen fire. They laid their sleeping bags on the floor with military spacing. They refused her couch. They fixed her igniter with a pocket kit, bled her radiators, checked the smoke alarms, replaced batteries she didn't know were dead. "Why are you like this?" Ruth asked, handing out chipped mugs of instant coffee. Caleb's mouth twitched. "Because when we were younger, we weren't." He didn't explain. They ate rations and called them gourmet. They used words like perimeter and watch. At 2:13 a.m., Ruth woke to a whisper and found a man called Bear watching the street from behind the curtain. "Go back to sleep, Ms. Ellis," he said. "We got you covered." For the first time since Robert died, she did. Morning slipped into the house like a shy guest. The storm kept chewing the city, but her furnace purred. The riders cleaned before leaving. They stacked wood she didn't own by the back door. Caleb pressed a small eagle coin into Ruth's palm. Metal, heavy, unbranded. "Anyone gives you trouble," he said, "show them this." "I don't want trouble," Ruth said. "That's why we'll handle it," he answered. They filed out into the white like soldiers walking into fog. Engines growled. The streets swallowed them. Ruth looked down at the coin. On the rim, hard to see. IVR. Not a brand, a promise. 3 days later, Ruth woke to a neighborhood she didn't recognize. The broken streetlight that slept for 9 months glowed warm. The liquor store that shouted all night now whispered. The corner boys vanished like a rumor that got embarrassed. Her steps were cleared after every snow. Groceries appeared on Thursdays. Not junk. Good food. No note. Just a folded receipt for 0.00 tucked into the bag. When Ruth asked who, everyone shrugged the same way. "Folks that don't want thanks," the mail carrier said. "Folks who know what thanks costs," the shopkeeper muttered. Ruth kept the coin in her apron pocket like a second heart. Then the other knock came. Not polite. Police knock. Deputy Marlowe had a smile that didn't touch his eyes. Young, crisp uniform. "Ms. Ellis," he said, "there was an incident. Bikers on your block." "There were helpers," Ruth said. He glanced past her into the spotless hallway. "Helpers tend to help themselves. We're keeping you safe." He paced. He picked up the coin from her table without asking. "Ah, a souvenir." He flipped it, then placed it exactly where it had been. That precise. "You call me if they return," he said. "You don't open the door again." Ruth watched his cruiser crawl away like a cold snake. That night, the street felt empty in the wrong way. Not safer. Watched. 2 weeks later, a developer came with a smile like polished chrome. Redding Properties. "Progress is coming to North Line," he said, spreading glossy plans on Ruth's table without asking. "We'll give you a premium price for your home. You'd be helping the whole neighborhood." Ruth's hands didn't move. "My husband is buried 3 blocks from here," she said. Redding laughed kindly. "Cemeteries relocate. Families relocate. You'll love our senior units. Elevator view, everything you deserve." He slid a contract her way. 30 days, he said, tapping a clause. "After that, we consider blight fees." When he left, the paper smelled like printer ink and threat. Ruth called the city number on the flyer. It rang into silence. She didn't call the coin. Not yet. The third knock was late. Midnight late. Not the riders. Marlowe again with 2 deputies and a polite warrant for safety inspection. They opened her cabinets. They poked behind her fridge. In the hall closet, one deputy smiled too wide. "Look what we found." A bag. Taped. Wrong kind of powder. Ruth stared. "That is not mine." Marlowe sighed like a disappointed teacher. "It never is, Ms. Ellis. They didn't cuff her. They didn't need to. An accusation is a leash long enough." When they left, Ruth sank into the chair her husband built. Her hands felt old for the first time. She picked up the coin. It was warm, maybe from her own shaking. "Please," she whispered to no one. "Please." bikes. They didn't knock. They just appeared. 9 bikes, like a slow drum line under falling snow. Bear at the window. Caleb at the door. Ruth held up the coin without speaking. Caleb took one look at the corner of the hallway, then the closet handle still crooked from rough hands. His jaw tightened. Who came? She told him. The bag, the warning, the contract, the smile. Caleb's men disappeared into the night like they were made of it. He stayed. He made tea. Ruth hated tea. Miss Ellis, he said softly, I owe you truth. He removed his gloves. Old scars mapped his knuckles. 15 years ago, I was not this man. We ran stupid. We ran mean. One winter, I smashed a window 2 blocks from here, thought nobody home. A man met me at the threshold. Didn't scream. Didn't swing. Just looked at me like I was his son. He said, you break that window and you'll spend 10 years paying for it one way or another. Or you can help me board it and spend the night being a better man. I boarded the window. He fed me soup. He never told the cops. Caleb's breath fogged the air between them. His name was Robert Ellis. Ruth felt the floor tilt. My Robert? Yes, ma'am, Caleb said, eyes wet, but not from the cold. He is the reason there are 9 of us today instead of graves. We made a vow, iron vow, to protect every door he ever kept open. Ruth pressed her palm to her mouth. She never knew. Which means, Caleb said, standing, his widow is under our roof now, even if hers leaks. What happened next didn't make the news. News likes loud things. This was quiet, practiced. The riders mapped patterns. Body cam footage failed around Marlowe every time seizures happened. Redding's LLC had a cousin in the county records office. Blight notices arrived before violations did. Bear installed a door camera that didn't blink. A man called Ghost parked across the street with a newspaper and watched who watched. 6 days later, Marlowe came back after midnight with the same careful smile. He lifted the planters on Ruth's porch. He checked the meter box. He reached for her back gate latch. The camera saw. So did Ghost. So did the state AG's investigator, already rolling, anonymously tipped by someone who knew which stones to turn. Marlowe didn't go to jail that night. Corruption doesn't snap cleanly. It frays. But the next morning, Ruth's mailbox held a note. Do not sign anything. 7 p.m. at the diner. Bring the coin. No signature. Ruth wore her church coat and her husband's scarf. The riders filled one side of the diner like a black leather pew. On the other, 3 men in plain suits with state IDs ordered coffee they didn't drink. The investigator spoke low. We have enough to freeze Redding's permits. We're building the case on Marlowe. We can protect you. But if you want it to stick, you have to testify about the inspection. Ruth's throat felt tight. What if I'm scared? The woman beside him, short hair, eyes that missed nothing, answered first. You're allowed to be. Courage isn't the absence of fear. It's a decision. Caleb slid the coin across the table until it tapped Ruth's fingers. Whatever you decide, he said, we stand. Ruth closed her hand. Metal against bone. I'll speak, she said, but not for revenge. For the next widow with a leaky roof. The hearing took place during another storm. The courthouse ceiling dripped into buckets and nobody called maintenance. Ruth told the truth. Plain, without spice. The tape from her door camera matched her memory. The investigator laid out bank trails, permit timelines, phone records speaking in numbers where people lied with words. Marlowe watched with a face carved out of ice. Redding smiled less. When it ended, the judge didn't bang the gavel like in movies. He just said the slow kind of sentence that means work begins. Permits froze. Internal affairs thawed. Marlowe's badge went into a tray. Outside, Ruth's legs trembled like new foals. The steps were steeper than they'd been in the morning. Caleb appeared beside her like a shadow that learned manners. You stood, he said simply. Ruth nodded. So did you. All these weeks, all those nights. Why? Caleb's jaw worked. Then he blew out a breath like confession. Because I owed your husband a debt, he said. And because, he hesitated. Because this is our neighborhood too. And your porch, light, feels like home. Ruth looked into the storm and tasted something old and warm. Home, she repeated. Home is where a door remembers how to open. You think that's the end? Blacktails rarely gives clean ends. 2 months later, Bear didn't answer his phone. He always answered. They found his bike near the river underpass. Tank warm, seat cold. No blood, no drama, just a dog tag on the railing tied with twine. On one side, a name Ruth had learned to bake an extra roll for on Thursdays. On the other, etched shallow, debts paid. Caleb didn't speak for a week. When he did, his voice sounded like gravel in a blender. Sometimes the world doesn't clap when you do the right thing, he told Ruth on her porch. Sometimes it hides what it takes from you. Ruth put a hand on his arm. Sometimes it gives a widow 9 sons she never had, she said. They stood in the cold until it didn't feel like punishment. Summer thawed the city. The riders Riders repainted Ruth's fence. Kids rode bikes on a street that forgot how to flinch. At dusk, neighbors brought lawn chairs and stories. When new folks asked who the woman on the porch was, someone always said the same 3 words. She opened first. The Iron Vow Riders never tattooed her name. They did something louder. Whenever they rolled past her house, they slowed, 2 fingers lifted in a small salute, vows traveling in the space between glove and air. People say they swore to protect her for life. Ruth laughs at that. They swore to protect the part of the neighborhood that still believes in doors, she says. Then she flips the deadbolt at night and sleeps. Not because locks keep danger out, but because men who learned from her husband keep darkness from thinking it lives here.